Hello everyone, it's Financetti, and today we're going to be talking about Ethereum's answer to Cardano's Hydra. As you know, lately Cardano has been gaining a lot of market share compared to Ethereum, and one of their most important scaling solutions is Hydra, and Ethereum has just come out and said, hey, we have something to combat that. We have Ethereum Rollups, and not only that, we're going to adjust our timeline to make sure that we can come out with rollups before Cardano comes out with Hydra. So let's get into it. This is a juicy one. Let's start off by explaining what Cardano Hydra is. Well, as we know, a cryptocurrency works by having a giant list of transactions and very specific algorithms used to make sure that those transactions are actually correct and not manipulated and not false. That's the basics of it. Now, that means that every single little thing that you do on the network regarding the crypto actually gets recorded on this one massive list. So let's say you're doing something that isn't as simple as just moving around a little bit of money here and there. Well, that also gets recorded in the same manner with the same security principles as everything else. What Cardano Hydra and Ethereum Rollups do, it's actually extremely similar. So to give you a very high level idea of what Ethereum and Cardano are trying to do and how they're going to compete, we're going to get into the details in a second, but just to give you a little thought experiment, think about it like this. You have a bouncer at a club, and a bunch of people from a bunch of different countries come up, and they all have different IDs that the bouncer has never seen, and he has no way to actually verify it. So if he were to go through and look through everything, he would need to say, okay, I need to translate this document first of all into something that I can read. Then I need to actually have some kind of thing on the side and compare it like, hey, is this actually a valid ID? Check this, and that. When really all the bouncer needs to know is, can I let this person in or not? So instead, what they're doing is, instead of putting all of the work on the bouncer, which is kind of the main chain, what they're doing is they're putting some secondary guy who's a translator who has all of the information he needs to verify IDs. And instead of communicating all of this information back to the bouncer, the only information he communicates is if these people are allowed in or not, because the bouncer doesn't care what their exact age is. The bouncer doesn't care. All he has to know is, did this person pass the test or not? Yes or no? Can I let them in or not? So that's the whole mentality behind it, is they want to offload the computational work from the bouncer / the main chain onto a side chain, which is also secure, but is able to compress the data that the bouncer needs and only give him what he needs in order to maintain the security of the network. So let's start with Cardano Hydra, because that's the one that I'm most familiar with. So Cardano has a main list of transactions as always, but what they have done is they have come up with a side list of transactions where, using P2P networks, peer-to-peer networks, and what that means is this. You have a main list of transactions. However, if you want to do something on the side off of the main chain so that it's a little bit faster, well, you can say, hey, I want to run this on Hydra, on the side chain. And what that does is it uses a different type of mechanism to prove everything, where basically everybody who's involved in that transaction needs to agree 100% on the end result of the transaction. And if even one person doesn't agree, well, it gets denied and everybody's money is reset, so as if that transaction never ever happened. However, if everybody agrees on the end result of that transaction, well, only the end result is recorded and sent back to the main chain. So the main chain was happening. You guys decided, hey, we want to do something complex and we're going to run it on the side chain. Something gets opened on the main chain that says, we're taking this amount of Cardano and allocating here, and we'll get back to you on what's happened to that Cardano. Stuff happens, and that Cardano switches hands a bunch of times according to the contract. And once all that is done and you guys agree on the end result, Well, that end result is then reported back to the Cardano main chain. So the only thing that the main chain had to process was the initial state and the end state. Everything that happened in between happened off chain, which means that it wasn't causing congestion on the main network. That's how Hydra works. Now let's talk about Ethereum rollups, and you might get deja vu here. Well, the way that Ethereum rollups work is that, once again, Ethereum has its main list of transactions, and it says, hey, on a little sidechain, which is attached to this main chain, we're going to allow certain types of transactions to be done off of our main chain, and using a fraud algorithm where anybody can challenge the end result, we're going to be able to make sure that what happens off the chain here in this side chain is actually secure and valid, and everybody agrees with it. And the reason it's faster is that if nobody challenges the end result, well, it just goes through. However, there is a round where everybody is able to be declare fraud, and then using a special algorithm, the actual result gets cleaned up and then sent further onto Ethereum. That's something that Hydra doesn't have. It just defaults back into the initial state if even one person disagrees. And alternatively, Ethereum also has a different type of rollup, which is not the one that's going to be accelerated and implemented faster right now, but they do have another type of rollup where there is no fraud proof used, but something called a validity proof. So what they do is that they bundle up a bunch of transactions, and based on these transactions, they actually come up with a special little proof card, let's call it, like a digital certificate of proof called a snark. And based on this certificate, you can check if, well, the transactions are actually correct or not. It's pretty complicated, but that's all you guys need to know to understand overall what's going on. We're not going to go too in depth into that because it has one main limitation, and that's that it can not run smart contracts. So actually, it's not going to answer the risk posed by Cardano's Hydra, because you can run smart contracts on Cardano's sidechain Hydra. You can run smart contracts on Ethereum's rollup sidechain using the fraud proof. However, when you switch to transactions using rollups, which are using a validity proof, well, things change here, because this is only useful when you have pretty simple transactions. You cannot do smart contracts here because smart contracts are more complicated. So remember, with these snarks, you can only do a simple type of transaction. And because of this, this is not being updated in the Ethereum roadmap, right? So only this other type of rollups where you are actually able to use smart contracts, which are based on a fraud proof, are actually going to be accelerated. And they are the ones that are going to be able to go up against Cardano's Hydra. So if you're now wondering, how much better is this actually going to make it? Well, according to Vitalik Buterin, just implementing this specific type of rollups is going to increase the capacity of the Ethereum network to be able to handle approximately 4,000 transactions in the most scientific lab best case scenario. More realistically, with regular real world usage, it's going to be handled up to 1,000 transactions per second. Currently, we're at 15. So that's a huge jump and should give more than enough time for the network to be working optimally before sharding is ready. And at that point, it will be necessary and be complete overkill, because right now this solution should be able to carry us until that is ready. Now, the solutions are slightly different because this would be acting as a sidechain, which would be fully validated in much the same way as Ethereum's main chain. So the way that it differs between Hydra is that Hydra actually says, okay, we're going to offload from the main chain into a Hydra network, which is peer-to-peer, versus Ethereum saying, all right, we're going to offload from the main chain into a side chain, but because we only care about the end result, and because this frees up our computational power, it ends up being much more efficient. So guys, as you can see, the competition between Ethereum and Cardano keeps going and keeps getting more and more interesting with every day that passes. You can see them really trying to one-up each other, and it's actually great for us that it finally has a real big competitor, which is fighting for market capacity, because it forces the Ethereum developers to really go back to the drawing board and say, hey, right now, what do we need in order to remain competitive? And as always, as consumers, we come out winning when there's competition on the markets. So it's going great for us. And as always, guys, if you got smarter, if I helped you learn something new today, remember, this is not financial advice. Always do your own research. And please hit that like button so YouTube knows that this is a video that needs to get pushed out to the people, and that people actually need to know more about this and how Ethereum is coming back seemingly from the grave and taking on Cardano once again. Please smash up that like button so YouTube knows that this is a good video that needs to be shared to other people. And if I've earned it and you want more content from me, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.